Hello, hello. Welcome to my breakdown and analysis of season 2, episode 4 of House of the Dragon. This episode is called The Red Dragon and the Gold. I am going to try and stay on topic today as much as possible and just get through this because this was a wild episode. As far as the best episode, I don't know. I don't know. There is a little bit of competition, but I think this one is pretty high up there. Definitely in the top 3 of the series so far. Well, definitely top 2 in the season, but it's only episode 4, so they still have some time to impress me. Get right into this. If you are new here, don't forget to like this video and subscribe so that you can always be the first to know when one of my analyses and breakdowns for the universe of A Song and Ice and Fire. Let's get into it. The first thing I would like to note is there are no new additions to the credits. So credits still end on blood and cheese, but I have a feeling that next episode we're going to be in for quite the update. So we open on a scene of Damon in the throne room, and he looks quite uneasy. He's clearly still at Harrenhal. Harrenhal is clearly still having its way with him. He is obviously having another dream sequence, I guess we could say. I don't know if he's sleeping in this one yet or if he is just having some awake visions, but Damon is going through it at Harrenhal this season. He is hearing voices almost. They're inaudible. He can't make it out as he approaches and he's like demanding that they clarify what it is, like, what are you talking about? So in these visions, he is still being haunted by young Rhaenyra. Millie Alcock is getting all that guest starring in, and it's like she never even left. And I have to say, I kind of love it. So I do now see part of the importance of them switching up the characters. Obviously, first of all, to make younger Rhaenyra and younger Alicent stick out more and make them look more younger and sympathetic for us to really be able to sympathize with their younger selves. Also, this makes the timeline of, I guess, Damon's guilt so much more apparent when they can bring back this younger actress to play Rhaenyra in these dream sequences, because obviously it's not necessarily him grappling with the fight that they just had a couple of days ago. This is him grappling with the entire sequence of their relationship. He's really still worried about how he did young Rhaenyra dirty. He's still, like, ruminating on that. And so, since they can bring back the younger actress to show this, to depict this, that it's the conception of their relationship and him grooming her right from the start that he seems to be struggling with. This actually, now in hindsight, was a great choice. I was one of the people who from the start, like before I even saw episode 1, I was really having trouble with the idea that they would be switching actors halfway through, and that was super frustrating because I was like, "I don't think I'm going to be able to re-immerse myself once they change those actresses." But now that we're past it and we're in season 2 and they have done such a great job in the storytelling, I love that they're able to bring back Millie Alcock as young Rhaenyra, and he can have these dream sequences with her to clearly show that it's the entire grooming process. It's how he's been doing her dirty ever since he was bouncing her on her knee, I guess. So, yeah, I love that they were able to do this, and I love this decision from the showrunners. Can I also say how excellent the actors do with the Valyrian language, with making it sound like a believable language? I don't know if I would be able to speak that fluently in a made up language or any language that I did not faithfully speak in real life. So, young Rhaenyra is going through and she is accusing Daemon of basically setting her up to destroy her, which he did. She is confronting him about how he did her wrong, how he set her up, how he basically destroyed her life or what should have been her life, which he did. Daemon was supposed to be the heir. Let's just say that. This all is supposed to be his problem. And to be honest, if it was Daemon's problem, if Daemon was the true heir, if they just allowed the throne to pass to Daemon, if Viserys did not name Rhaenyra heir if he did not have a whole second family, if he did not have this crazy fervent lust to have a son and the crown just passed to Daemon. None of this would be happening because nobody would be crazy enough to challenge Daemon's claim as the heir presumptive. And if they did, and Daemon was the one calling the shots, the retribution would have been swift. So he really did set Rhaenyra up for failure, not only by forcing Viserys to disinherit him and name her his heir, but also by then going through and having the little Jaehaerys incident, the whole blood and cheese happen, offing his first wife so that he could try and marry her, going through and marrying her now, going through and faking Laenor's death, which I'm so nervous about how that is going to unfold, but we're not gonna get into that here. So yeah, he has done so many things to undermine and sabotage her taking the crown that clearly it is weighing on his guilt. And even if he is not consciously, because like it doesn't look like he's consciously being able to analyze and work through this, it really looks like the weirwoods are bringing this out of his subconscious and making him grapple with it. Because I think that if he were conscious about his guilt and able to work through it and right his wrongs and not be so stubborn about it, this probably would not be as tormenting. The weirwoods would drum something else up, but this is clearly weighing on, at the very least, his subconscious, and he's not able to move past it. So in the sequence, he pulls out Dark Sister and he decides to try and fight his demons or fight young Rhaenyra. And this is, again, so telling of his overall story arc because Daemon cannot deal with anything that he cannot fight in the physical. He's still trying to pick that fight. He's still trying to have this argument. He still wants to battle out physically this argument that he just had with Rhaenyra when she confronted him and called him pathetic. He's still grappling with this because he's clearly realizing that on some level, it's kind of sort of true. Unfortunately, despite the fact that he tried to use physical violence to deal with this problem, it didn't work. She is still sitting there and talking to him, despite the fact of being dismembered, decapitated, unheaded. When he first wakes up, his hands are still all bloodied from the dream sequence. But seconds later, he flips over his hand. He realizes that it's gone. So this Weirwood, this place, Harrenhal, what he's going through is not necessarily a dream sequence. It's really tying the relationship. It's really tying the threads between sleep and awake, between his dreams and reality. It's tying them together. It's blurring those lines so that he can't always tell what's real and what's not real. And I'm sure that's part of what's really, really unnerving for him. So he wakes up and he's told there's been a raven, which is the exact same thing that young Rhaenyra had said in his dream. As Sir Simon Strong leads Daemon through the castle, he updates him on Christian Cole's doings. So they know that he's been on his way for about a fortnight, so a couple weeks, which gives us some time frame. So now we're looking at probably about a month since it's passing, about 3 to 4 weeks since the passing of Viserys, if I have my timeline correct. So this is only about a month, which comes into play later because I thought about it after my last video. And given the timeline now, so it's only been about a month since the passing of Viserys. I will give like 6 weeks on the outside. Alicent and Crispy have been comfortable for longer than that because that would have happened about like 3 weeks on the outside afterwards. Like I forgot because of how long it's been since last season. I forgot how quickly like everything happened after Viserys's funeral. And so I think I'm side tangent. I'm so sorry. I think that Alicent and Crispy have been doing the debauchery much longer than just since Viserys had passed. But we're gonna go off on that later on. But I had realized because I was like, "Wait a minute, it's been only 2 weeks since that," sitting there going backwards and doing the timeline. So, yeah, Crispy is out. He is taking a bunch of the smaller castles, and he is clearly on his way to Harrenhal, or so they presume. Now Daemon knows. Daemon knows that Crispy is on his way. Daemon knows that getting this army is top priority. So, let's see how he decides to go about it. Sir Strong also mentions that all of the houses that are flipping over to the greens that Kristen, sorry, I know his name is Kristen. I don't like him. Therefore, I keep mispronouncing his name. I'm horrible with names. You can tell that the Song of Ice and Fire universe is like my Achilles heel because there's too many names and they're all the same. Okay, Kristen. All of these armies that he is accumulating, all these castles that are falling along the way, are all talking about what happened to little Jaehaerys as part of the reason for flipping. So this is just another sting to Daemon about how badly he screwed up with the blood and cheese stunt. So they're going into the room, this meeting room, receiving room, dining room. They make sure to let you know that there are very few rooms that are not in a state of disrepair in Harrenhal as we are walking through. So I'm assuming that that's why all of the meetings are happening in this dining room because there's just not very many places that are acceptable to receive a guest. So this is Lord Oscar Tully. He is Lord Paramount, Grover Tully's grandson. And he is going to take over the Riverlands once Grover Tully passes. Because remember, he is a very, very old man. He is barely conscious. He cannot take care of himself. He barely eats. He is just clinging to the last remnants of his life. And this is his grandson and he has been in training to take over for him. So when they called and said, "Listen, Lord Paramount, you need to get your ass down here. Prince Daemon needs to talk to you." They sent him instead. So they start by making a little bit of small talk. Daemon's asking how the grandfather is, and Oscar's like, he's not doing well, but he's still hanging in there. Gods be good. Daemon's like, this is not working for me. Daemon's like, listen, what I need for you to do is grab a pillow, put it over his face, and press down firmly. Oscar's like, I love my grandfather. Why in the world would I do that? And Simon Strong is, of course, just absolutely face palming. He's like, this is pretty much how I expected this to go, but why did you say the quiet part out loud? Why? So Damon wants Oscar to speak for his grandfather. He wants him to go out and command the minor lords in the Riverlands to join Daemon's side. And Oscar's like, while he's alive, like I would never presume to make a decision for him. Like he's the Lord. I can't speak for him. I can't do this. And the idea that this boy, who is the rightful heir to the Riverlands, the rightful heir to this lordship, has no interest in speeding along his inheritance, as Damon puts it, is absolutely wild to him. Like the fact that he would rather have his grandfather with him and he'd rather take care of his grandfather and sit second seat rather than doing what Damon wants him to do is absolutely bewildering to Damon. You can see it in his face. He's just like, why wouldn't you want to do this for me? So essentially he says that this guy's no use to me. I am not surprised that all of the houses are feuding amongst themselves. Obviously, House Tully is a fish with no head. So he says, like, bring me whoever, like the Brackens and the Blackwoods, who is on our side, who is not for the Greens. Bring me them. I don't care who it is, just bring them here now. Next, we cut away and we get Rhaenys, Princess Rhaenys in Driftmark. She's making her way down to the piers to pay a visit to Corlys. So she stumbles upon Alan, who we remember saved Corlys's life off screen. And she immediately recognizes something's off with this young man. Now, this gives me a little bit of the ick, but I guess it's also just one of those things about how disconnected the highborn are from common folk or the small folk. Like, who just walks up to a complete stranger and you're like, what's your name? Alan, Adam, and then starts touching their face. Like, who does that? She calls him comely and says that his mother must have been very beautiful, and Corliss immediately interrupts this moment. And again, like, it's just I have never had a stranger come up and, like, touch my face before, but I have had a perfect stranger just walk up and start touching my hair because I have curly hair, and that was next level. So for somebody to walk up and just start, "What's your name?" and start just uninvited starting to touch my face and be like, "Your mother must have been beautiful," gives me like 18 levels of ick because who does that? If you do that, don't. I will be the person who puts out the unpopular opinion that I don't think that you should be allowed to walk up to strangers and start touching their faces, regardless of if you saved their husbands' lives. Outside of this, this is totally Rhaenys's episode. It's her jam. I love me some Rhaenys. I don't always agree with what she does. Corlys dismisses Adam as if it's his fault that Rhaenyra decided to come up and start, like, molesting his face, and he grabs his stuff, obviously very happy to be dismissed, and runs off to go finish his duties. So here they have a brief conversation about Alan. She says that the captains have told her that he's the one that saved him, and Corliss is like, "Yeah," and she's like, "You didn't think to mention anything?" And he's like, "Mention what?" Like, "No, no, no, it's cool." So clearly from this exchange, we are meant to know that Alan is one of Corliss's bastards. He does look a little like he could be older than Lena and Laenor, so I'm wondering if they have aged it so that this was before their wedding or maybe earlier in their relationship, but she's clearly unhappy about the fact that Corliss did not tell her that it was one of his bastards that is working on his ship and that saved him. And she says that he should be celebrated for saving Corliss's life. So the fact that he was not honored and celebrated immediately gave her suspicion on who this man was. So clearly she did at some level want to seek him out and see what was going on. Now, Corliss does seem genuinely ashamed in this moment where she is confronting him about Alan being his bastard. She's saying that she knows who he is and it's not his fault. But again, you can also see that she's not at all happy about the situation or about him being around in general. So they wrap up that little bit and they move on to Bela calling Rhaenys to Dragonstone. She's saying that they need to get down there. And we remember for a couple of episodes now, Rhaenys has been trying her hardest to convince Corlys to come back and sit on Rhaenyra's council because of how out of pocket those other lords are getting. And she needs some backup. She needs some backup with authority. And Corlys, being one of the most powerful and wealthy lords in all of the kingdoms, he's a really good person to have on the council because he's been to war. He has the means, he has the power, he has the authority over the other lords who are largely minor lords to be able to back up Rhaenyra. They also kind of mentioned that Rhaenyra's been gone for a few days and nobody knows where. Rhaenys doesn't know where, but she has a hunch that Rhaenyra went to try and settle peacefully or to draw us back from the brink of abyss, as she puts it. The next scene cuts to Alicent Hightower, and she is reminiscing on better times. We can see quite clearly in this shot that this is Viserys's dragon from his little model city of Valyria. And this is Balerion. Remember, he dropped Balerion when he was having a conversation with Alicent once and broke the wing, and Alicent had taken him and had somebody mend him. So you can see the crack and the, I guess, glue that they used. You can see it's kind of browning to clean up the crack on Balerion's wing. Moments later, there is a knock at the door and she drops and breaks that wing again, which symbolism. So we see Grand Maester Orwell coming in and he is carrying a sneaky package. He uncovers it to show that it is a bottle of moon tea, and Alicent says, "Oh, no worries. I will see that it is delivered to the intended recipient." So they have a little bit of back and forth, and it's another I know that you know that I know situation. Orwell knows that it's for Alicent. Alicent knows, like, she has to know that Orwell knows that it's for her, but neither one of them are willing to acknowledge the obvious. Alicent says that she will make sure to get it to the intended party. Orwell's like, well, make sure that the intended party knows that it can cause some stomach upset. And she's like, I will let that person know. Consider them advised. So it's kind of it's going back and forth with this. I know that you know that I know that you know, but we're not going to say it. As he's walking out the door, Allison stops him. She wants to know if Orwell believes that Viserys wanted Aegon to ascend to the throne or if he wanted Rhaenyra. Now, the look on Orwell's face is like, "Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. This is treason, and I'm not falling for your bait. I saw what happened to Lord Beesbury, and so I am going to answer option D. I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't even speak English. I'm not even here, dude." He essentially says, Viserys never spoke with me about this, which cannot possibly be true. You've never spoken to the highest maester in the land, basically. He's on your small council. He offers you guidance. He treated you as a physician for how many years? He's never, in your presence or to you, discussed who his heir was or any of those wishes. I highly doubt it. But Orwell's like, I am not getting beheaded today. I don't know anything. I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. I ain't no snitch. And he's like, I'm done. And when I tell you that Alicent chugged that moon tea with like a fervor that is reserved only for someone who knows that they have made the highest of all mistakes. Now, here is my question. Moon tea can be used as like a plan B, right? Like for anybody wondering what the significance of her having this tea and keeping it a secret is. Moon tea can work as a plan B, but I think it can also work as an abortion drink as well. So if you think that you are pregnant, like they can take this and hopefully it will work. But it's supposed to be very dangerous if it's brewed improperly. That's a whole other thing that we don't really have to get into because she's fine. She's fine. Spoiler warning, she's fine after this. She goes on to have more conversations in this episode. But I'm wondering if she's taking it as a precautionary measure or if she is taking it as a resolution to something. And you'll get why a little bit later on. But yeah, that is the face and posture of someone who knows that they have made a terrible mistake. It's like a coyote ugly moment. So we cut away to Rhaenyra's council, her war council, if you will, and they are still discussing their position and tactical matters, despite the fact that Rhaenyra is not here. Some of the lords start criticizing Baela for letting Christian Cole get away, and she essentially says, "You know what? Next time you're out scouting on your dragon, you can deal with the situation as you see fit," which I kind of love. I do love that she's got a little bit of sass coming back to them. Rhaenys is here, observing, trying to hold everything together, and trying to hold everybody back from going out and actually starting this war in Rhaenyra's absence. So they're essentially just talking about the state of the Riverlands. They're talking about Kristen Cole's army that's moving through them and taking all the small castles. They're talking about the lack of word from Daemon. So not too much. Just all catch up and storytelling, making sure that we as an audience knows what's going on and how the urgency for action is increasing steadily over time. We also hear that they have been sending ravens to Harrenhal to try and figure out what's going on with Daemon. Why is there no action? Why is there no word? And he just has not been responding. He's obviously very busy. So just as they start turning on each other, Jace tries to stick up for his mother, and one of the lords is kind of backing away. He's saying this council is rudderless. There's nobody to make decisions. Rhaenys stands up and says that she's trying to steer you guys in the right direction, and he wants to still fight with Rhaenys now. And then Lord Corlys finally makes his return to the castle and immediately puts him in his place. I still love these two as a power couple. It's never going to change. Corlys adds that authority to redirect, to force them to listen to Rhaenys. Rhaenys is a woman, so they don't want to listen to her. Jace, they consider a child. He's the heir. He's not actually able to make any decisions. They want either Rhaenyra or Daemon, probably preferably Daemon to come back because, he's got something that Rhaenyra does not. And apparently that gives him more authority. So we cut to a battle scene. There has been an army that has just been utterly trampled, and we have Crispy here up on his platform delivering a speech of how, essentially you bend a knee or you die. Those are your options. Let me now demonstrate the dying part. So they're marching the Lord of these parts over for the sentence to be passed. And Crispy is marching over there along with them. You can see in this that his cloak is completely gray. It's completely muddied. And I think that that is to symbolize more than just an intense battle. Here's the first time that we see Kristen being called Kingmaker. And so it's very much in response to him going through the Riverlands and attacking all of these castles and taking them over very brutally. It doesn't seem like it is an honorary, it's very much a mocking title. He also points out that Crispy's not fit for the White Cloak. You have no honor. You are not an honorable man. You didn't fight honorably. You're going through and you're ransacking all of these places. There is quite a bit of disdain for him, and he even spits on him. He is not having it. He's like, if these final words cost me my life, they are well worth it. As he walks past, you do see almost this wave of soldiers beginning to kneel. They obviously do not want to encounter the same fate as their lord. So he receives a raven, reads it, and starts saying that they're going to follow the coastline. They're going to, rather than heading west, which Gwaine points out, Harrenhal's to the west. Like, why are we going following the coastline? Why are we heading north? And Crispy's basically, because I said so, we're going north. That's what I said. That's where we're going. It's not for you to know. It's for me to decide. And you can also see that he is getting his signature crazy eyes back. So we cut away to the small council, and now they're discussing Daemon taking Harrenhal. Aegon is not happy with this. He decides to call out Laris, and I think this is probably the downside to Laris being permitted to join the small council room. We don't really know what his end game is, so I don't know if he intended on being here, but now he's being called out in front of everybody. How could you not even hold your own castle? Laris likes to play this little meek game. So he's still very much trying to make himself look and seem much smaller than he actually is. He says, "Okay, but in my defense, that castle is a piece of shit. It's run down. It has no money because I will give it no money. And so while Damon is running around like a dog chasing its own tail, trying to unite the houses of the Riverlands to fight with him, trying to fix up the castle so that it's suitable to garrison forces, trying to raise the money to do this with zero staff, we get to work on our own plan, which is essentially Kristen going through and sacking the castles. See, I'm smart too. So it's clear here that the small council is planning this war without the king. And I think that that is a very important contrast compared to Rhaenyra's council, who are clearly uncomfortable with not making decisions, with not moving without her okay. Because in the Greens Council, Aemond and Laris and Crispy are all making these decisions behind Aegon's back. All of these things are happening without any input or knowledge from Aegon. And he is literally coming apart in this small council meeting because of it. So Aemond essentially says, no, they're going to Rook's Rest. And Aegon's like, I want them to go to Harrenhal. No, we're not doing that. We're going to Harrenhal. Aemond explains that this castle is actually significant. Despite the fact that it's tiny, it's actually very significant from a war standpoint. This war is not going to be won by dragons alone. You're going to need infantry. Even Aegon the Conqueror had an army. Once they attack and take over Rook's Rest, Dragonstone will be completely cut off by land. So even though they control the sea, they can't control the land. Also, the Lord of Rook's Rest sits on Rhaenyra's council, so it's also a symbolic gesture. It means that we can take what's yours, just like you kind of infiltrated us, we can take what is yours. Your own council is not safe. Those closest to you are not safe. Now, again, they did not run this past Aegon. Aegon doesn't know the significance, doesn't understand. They didn't go through these steps with him. Instead, he's been completely caught off guard and he's very resentful towards it. Here's another moment where everybody on the council visibly shifts uncomfortably in their seats. Aemon says, like, it's already done. The order has already been sent. Christian Cole already gave me confirmation. Like, this plan is already set. We're not turning around, despite the fact that you think you want Harrenhal. It's not going to happen. You are not in control here, is what Aemond is saying. Kristen Cole and I are running this war. And we have been secretly communicating behind your back. So Aegon goes back to basically, I am the king. And Aemond decides that this is the point where I get to embarrass you, just like you tried to embarrass me in front of your imbecilic lickspittles on your Kingsguard. I am going to now embarrass you in front of your own small council. He pulls out the High Valyrian and, in flawless High Valyrian, decides to say, you know what? I decided to take this war planning upon myself because you were busy. You were busy going and partying and hanging out in brothels with your buddies while I was up all night planning your war. But don't worry, you can thank me later. Now, he obviously dresses him down a little bit more than this, and it's very awkward because you have to believe that High Valyrian is, like, not a common language, but it's also not very uncommon, especially probably to people with ports, like Lannisters will have Lannisport. So I'm sure the Lannisters also learn how to speak High Valyrian as they grow up. I'm sure Maester Orwell learned High Valyrian at Maester School at the Citadel. So he probably speaks it too, and I'm sure that it's common enough that the other highborn lords probably at least have a little bit of an idea of what it is. Because again, if you're going to raise to some of the highest positions in the land, it's one of those things that you're going to probably want to know. The Kingsguards, I don't think they have any idea what's going on. They probably don't speak it, but the people on the council probably at least have a passing understanding of what's said. And here, Aemond is showing his control of the language, dressing his brother down, supposedly privately in front of everybody because, we're switching languages, so they shouldn't be able to understand. They totally probably understand at least a general idea of what he's saying, and just the condescending face. And remember, Aegon is already insecure after Larys said that Alicent and Aemond want to rule in his absence. So Aemond ends saying, if you have a better strategy, voice it to your council. And after that, they both look over at Aemond. So I do think that they know that, at least have a general understanding of what's being said, even if they can't understand every single word. Because then, especially the Lannister and the maester both look over, make eye contact with Aegon, and know that it's his turn to speak. Aegon is not happy, to say the least, like unhappy. He's put on the spot and he is embarrassed. He speaks some broken High Valyrian. He's like, Est-ce que je peux avoir une wartime? He's like, can I make a war, please? And it's clear that he does not have a command of the language. So now you're supposed to be the pinnacle of Valyrian blood. You're the king. You're supposed to be uber Targaryen, and you can't even speak the language. Just another way that Aemond kind of belittles and undermines and demeans his brother and his authority. So Aemond, already seeing that he clearly got the job done of embarrassing his brother, just responds to it with, and goes on saying that Harrenhal is essentially a red herring. It's going to keep Daemon busy while we continue to go and accumulate these castles. And, that's how it's going to be. I have decided. Case closed. End of story. Period. So Larys decides to pay a visit to Alicent because she was notably absent from the small council. She pulled some hot stones out of the fire and she's holding them against her belly, so clearly she's having some discomfort, just like Orwell said she would. Unfortunately, she's left the vial for the moon tea on the table, and so now what Larys was suspecting, now he knows for sure. And you can see the panic in her eyes for a split second when she realizes that she made such a rookie mistake. So this is the look. And she's trying to say that she ate a little bit too much lamprey pie. And he's like, yeah, way too much lamprey. Sorry, as a side note, I remind me, okay, I need to put up a picture of a lamprey here, just in case you don't know what a lamprey looks like. I'm gonna put one up on screen because, like, as a bio major, that just makes me so happy that the reference is referencing. So, yeah, there is definitely a double entendre to this that you would not necessarily get if you didn't know what a lamprey is. I will leave you to decipher it. They sit here, and at this point, they're just chatting about what happened in the small council room. They're talking about the war efforts. They're talking about Kristen covering himself in glory and Laris kind of furthering that he knows whose lamprey pie she has been indulging in. And Allison just looks so done with his shit. She looks like she is running through the inventory of her memories of all of the things that he has done for and to her, and just trying to figure out her end game and how to get out of the situation because she does not want to be indebted to this man anymore. She also definitely does not want him having anything on her because it's just not worth it at this point. So he does come over and clock that she's not seemed like herself as of late, and she brushes it off. My husband died. We're at war. My grandchild died. My son murdered his nephew. I have a lot going on. But I think that this is an important moment because he feels her pulling away. And what is he going to do when he feels that he does not have control over her anymore? Or now that he knows that she seems to be trying to calculate her exit from his control? How is he going to react to that? He also points out that Allison's table here is covered with history books, which I think it would have been easy to miss if he didn't point it out. So the question now is, what is she searching for in the histories? He says specifically that she's sharing her husband's interest in the histories. So is she reading Targaryen history? Is she reading the history of old Valyria? It's interesting. Is she looking for information on A Song of Ice and Fire to see if Rhaenyra is actually lying to her? So it's very important to note that Laris asks Alicent, "Are you second guessing Viserys changing his mind?" And Alicent goes back to the cycle. He says that Rhaenyra's supporters are going to believe whatever they want. Aegon's supporters are going to believe what he wants. There's going to be fighting and bloodshed, and the winner will ascend to the throne. Nothing else matters anymore. What Viserys wanted doesn't matter anymore because the cycle has already started. And that is just an important callback to last episode that it doesn't matter what anybody wants anymore. Nobody knows. The war has already started. Nobody knows. Nobody cares what started it. It's always just going to keep going. The cycle is just going to keep going till there is enough bloodshed to declare a winner. The next scene, we have Daemon awakening and following someone through the halls of Harrenhal. We're clearly expected to believe that it's going to be Aemond. He has the strap for the eye patch. He has the same mannerisms and walk as Aemond, which I think the walk is spot on. I thought it was going to be Viserys. To be honest, I really did think it was they were gonna turn around and it was gonna be Patty Constantine or Viserys. But then he turns around and it's himself. It is Daemon cosplaying as Aemond that he's been following through the halls. And I think Daemon is already well aware that Aemond strives to be him, that he kind of has this love-hate relationship. Like, he wants to be him, but he also wants to destroy him to prove that he's better than him. And I think that Daemon almost loves that about Aemond, but also, again, it is the closest thing to fight yourself is probably fighting somebody who aspires to be you. And we know that Daemon fixes everything with a sword. So he wanders into the kitchen, I assume, or her brewery, I don't know. And he meets Alice finally and gets to have an actual conversation with her. She gives him a bunch of non-answers. She asks him how he's sleeping. She's obviously having a little bit of a witchy moment, and Damon is not appreciating the antics. He realizes that she's probably behind a lot of the weird stuff that's happening to him, and yet she brews him a little potion, which he drinks. So Alice's theory, her working theory, is that Damon has come to claim Harrenhal as his own, which is interesting. So now is this the war of the 3 monarchs? The 3 well, it can't be 3 kings because Rhaenyra is a queen, but you know what I mean. Is Daemon going to make a rival claim for the throne against Rhaenyra? So Daemon proceeds to drink the drink. Daemon drinks the drink after the strange witchy woman confronts him about trying to steal his wife's claim for the throne and that he is secretly enjoying the fact that she is having issues with her legitimacy and getting men to fight for her, and then proceeds to start tripping balls. He cannot coherently follow any of the following meetings. He comes to from drinking that drink literally immediately in a meeting with the Brackens, who he needs to get on his side. And he's like, "Who the hell are you? Where am I? Who am I? What is this?" It's a very, very awkward moment for everyone. And we're told that this is the same Blackwood that was at Storm's End trying to get Rhaenyra to marry him. If we remember back to season 1, he was the young guy, and he got into the fight with the Bracken, and I think obviously, he slayed the Bracken right there in the hall of Storm's End before Rhaenyra's like, "We're going home. I'm done with this." So, he could have almost married Rhaenyra, and I think that's what he's pointing out to Daemon. He's like, "I could have married your wife, you know?" So, his dead ex-wife, dead previous wife appears to come and serve the wine, and it's a hallucination, of course, but it is notable enough to pull his attention, and he just like I said, he's tripping balls. He cannot stay focused in this meeting. We're back in the small council room, and they are kind of chatting and meeting about some minor issues. The crown is running out of money, they have no money, and the small folk are running out of sheep to feed Vhagar specifically. They mention that she has quite the appetite. Aegon is visibly bored and not interested, and pretty much everything they say is a problem or a criticism until they start talking about Crispy, who is going through and taking over castle after castle, and all of these successes are befalling on him. And Aegon is annoyed and bored that everybody else has great, fun, interesting, entertaining things to do, decisions to make, and he just has to sit here and listen to these old guys complain about the lack of sheep to feed the dragons. He doesn't want to deal with all of this bureaucracy. He wants to make the good decisions. He wants to make moves. He wants to bathe in glory, just like Crispy. Once they start talking about Crispy and Aemond and Vhagar and how they are all doing such a great job and that they are the key to Aegon's power and to winning this war, Aemond essentially has a little hissy fit, says that everybody bores him, and storms out. Aegon storms straight to his private quarters where he finds his mom going through his cabinet. So she's looking for Viserys's books, all of his history books. And Aegon's like, "I got rid of those. I don't want those around. What do I need those for?" Alicent points out that the history is important, and that is how your father was a great ruler. We know he was probably mediocre, but he ruled over peace. He didn't start nothing, didn't have to finish nothing. So I guess in that way, the prosperity he inherited from King Jaehaerys to be passed down to him and to continue on through his reign. She criticizes him for having the books removed, and he said, "Relax, it's not like I burnt them. I just told them to take them away." So he starts immediately complaining to Mummy that they don't care what I think. They won't let me have my war. And she's like, "Why are you thinking? You don't have to think. We didn't put you in this position to think. You have a council that have been running this place for decades. I have ruled in your father's stead for years. Otto was the hand to 3 kings, and he may be the best politician in the land, and you sent him away. Thinking has not been your greatest asset so far, but you know what is? Sitting there quietly and listening and letting us do the work of running the realm. That's your job. That's why we put you here." His response again is, "I am the king. She's like, "Do you think that just putting the crown on somehow gives you a say or gives you any kind of knowledge of what goes on around here? You didn't even have a single day of training. You don't know how to do this. We do. Sit back, look pretty, shut the fuck up." Just another amazing parenting moment from the best mother in the world, the Dowager Queen, Alicent. No, don't get me wrong. Aegon didn't take this laying down. He tells her, "Tread carefully, watch your fucking mouth." To which Alicent's like, "What are you gonna do to me? Are you gonna banish me like you did Otto? Are you gonna hang me like you did the rat catchers? What are you going to do to me?" It's like, "I've been there before. I've done this longer than you. You should be bowing down. You should be humbling yourself and asking for my help instead of being a precious little bitch." And then she essentially reiterates what Otto had told him last episode. "You have no idea the sacrifices that we all made to put you on the throne. We put you on your throne, not your father." And I think that that, again, is just deepening that insecurity within Aegon. He's like, what do you want me to do? What just sit here?" And she's like, "Yeah, that's exactly what we want you to do. We want you to sit there, do nothing, and look pretty." And he's genuinely, like, flabbergasted by this. The next scene we cut to is the camp of Sir Crispy's army. He's saying it's the middle of the day, and he's saying, "Hey, everybody, get your shit together. We're gonna go. We're gonna march. We're gonna lay siege in the middle of the day on this castle at Rook's Rest. Let's get it." And Gwen's like, "No, that's madness. We laid siege at nightfall. That's how sieges work." And Crispy's like, "Nah, no, we're gonna do it during the day." He's like, "Did you forget what just happened?" He's like, "No, no, didn't forget it." Gwen's like, "This is not gonna work. The dragons are just across the bay, so they're setting up distance. The dragons are right there, like right over. We can see them. They can see us. Why are we doing this during the day?" He's like, "I got a feeling we're gonna do something wild. We're gonna catch them off guard." And Gwen's like, "The reason we don't do something wild and catch them off guard is because it doesn't work. This is not going to work." Crispy's like, Don't care." And we get Crispy with his crazy eyes. He's like, I know something that you don't know, and we're gonna do this." So, yeah, we're gonna go and lay siege in the middle of the daylight, and you do with that information what you will. I am the commander. I am the hand. You are infantry, Mr. Highborn man. So get your shit and let's go. Rhaenyra finally returns, and she returns to hostility from her entire council, including her son. You can see the look here on her face. It's like, "You did not just talk down to me." This look here is bordering on the "I will slap the taste out of your mouth" look that, some of us might have received once or twice. They give some updates on how the war is going. We can see that the gentleman that Rhaenyra was traveling with, it was his father that was beheaded at Duskendale. That was the scene with Crispy. It was a little bit earlier in the episode. So they say that city has fallen, and he's clearly upset. Jace demands to know where Nira has been, and you can still see the bewildered look. She's like, "This is not my son. Like, who are you? My son would not talk to me like this." And you can tell that this is not their relationship. This is not the son that she knows. He would not talk to her like this. As we can see, his annoyance is growing. He wants to fight, and the bloodlust is growing inside of him. I wonder if this is him being impatient, if it's him being young, or if this is Damon's influence on him growing up. She explains that she went to King's Landing, she met with Alicent, and she tried to discuss options for peace. She inherited 80 years of peace from her father. She was not ready to just dump a war on the small folk, on the people, without doing everything she possibly could to avoid it. So Rhaenyra points out that a lot of people are mistaking her caution, her unwillingness to end 80 years of peace for a weakness, and that's going to be their undoing. She's sending a dragon. She's going to go herself. And of course, the council tells her she can't do that. Jace volunteers to go, and she says that he does not have the experience. He has the bloodlust, even though he thinks he's going to be in and out, that he does not have the experience to go and do this. Rhaenys immediately volunteers and says that she's gonna go. She's the one with the experience. She's been to war. Meleys has battle experience, and they are the logical choice. Rhaenyra has to stay because she is the queen. She needs to stay safe. Everything's lost if she perishes in battle. So it's got to be Rhaenys and Meleys. The confidence in Rhaenys's demeanor shows that she's always planned this. She's always planned to go. She was just waiting for the order. We remember in episode 1 that Daemon wanted Rhaenys and Caraxes to go out together to find Vhagar and to tear her apart. And she said, no, not without the okay, not without the orders from the queen. And now that we see that the orders are coming down, she's the first to volunteer. She's ready to go. She has the experience. She's like, let's ride. Rhaenyra is hesitant because she realizes the weight of this decision and what could possibly happen. But she finally gives the order to start battle. Now, as a side note, in this moment, Jace has really been pushing to start the war. He's been really pushing, along with the other lords, to start sending out dragons. He wanted to go. He fought with his mother to go in this scene. And I think that he does not really understand the consequences of sending dragons out. He's still young and dumb and thinks that everything's going to work out in the end. He doesn't realize the cost of dragon warfare on both sides. Now, Aegon's been sitting alone in his quarters, drinking, getting drunk, and feeling sorry for himself. But eventually he runs out of wine and decides he's going to make a stupid decision today. So instead of just calling for some more, he decides to let those inner voices get to him. Rhaenyra is waiting in her library and she calls for Jace to be brought to her. He comes in and he's immediately on the defensive because he thinks that his mom is finally going to, that he thinks that his mom is going to tear a piece out of him because he challenged her in front of everyone, but she has something so much more important to her to discuss with him. She says that she has something that she needs to discuss with him and that she's been putting it off for years. She should have told him as soon as he became heir. This is superimposed with Rhaenys getting into her battle gear. I love her armor. I have to say, love it. And she is heading out to meet with Meleys as Rhaenyra talks over them about the Song of Ice and Fire. Meanwhile, Aegon is also putting on Aegon the Conqueror's Valyrian steel armor yet again, that ill-fitting armor that he has no business being in. He's not battle-tested. He is not a warrior. He is not a conqueror. He is a pretender. And he is drunkety drunk. And we see Sunfire being led out of the dragon pits. Now, Sunfire and Aegon have a very touching moment. Sunfire leans in and nuzzles Aegon, and you can see his joy in seeing her. But you can also see it's a very different demeanor. Sunfire comes out, sees him in battle, and he's like, "What's going on? What are we going to do today, buddy?" It is a very, very touching moment, but it's also a very playful moment. Rhaenys and Meleys, on the other hand, you see Meleys sitting there, and she's also having a very touching moment with Meleys. She's in full armor, but Meleys has a completely different demeanor. She knows what's going on. She knows that this is serious business and they're about to go to work. Also, absolutely love this little tiara, little headpiece that she's got on. I wonder if it is Valyrian steel as well, along with the embellishments on her armor. This is also a theme running through Meleys and Rhaenys's scenes here, where they continuously make eye contact with each other, and it's just so touching and so telling about their deep bond that they've got this connection. They've been through some things. We also cut to the armies getting ready to lay siege and defend the castle. Crispy with the crazy eyes and the dragons departing. Rhaenyra points out that starting this war is not just about winning a crown. The amount of life lost and damage that will be done in this war is not worth it if it's only for a crown. And we finally get a close-up of Aegon's joyride on Sunfire. So the battle's going on, and it is horrible as a siege is. This is exactly what Gawain was talking about. They saw us coming. They know this is happening. We didn't just assemble under the dark of night. We are going to have massive casualties because everyone's ready. Everyone's awake and ready and at their posts. They can fight back. It's not like we can go and sneak in and catch them off guard while their infantry is sleeping. This is why this was a mistake. So Gawain comes running back. He's like, there's a dragon coming. Everybody's running, there's chaos because there's a dragon coming. Gawain yells at Crispy saying, "This is exactly what I told you would happen. We're getting our asses handed to us because we attacked in the day. They had time to see us coming. Now there's a dragon coming, and the dragon is going to eat us all." Kristen's like, "Yeah, I figured this would happen. Let's just light the signal. Make sure to get the dragon's attention. Go send some guys out that they can get the dragon's attention so that we can set the signal." Melis is so fierce, and the dragon warfare has commenced. The signal continues, and we see what the secret weapon finally was. And it's Aemond and Vhagar rising out of the forest canopy until they see another dragon enter. Aemond has Vhagar wait. He's like, "Wait a minute, let's let this play out." And Vhagar goes back for her little nanny nap. Aegon's decided that he's going to fly into battle, and he sees the other dragon and thinks it's probably a good idea to engage. Crispy admits that this was not his plan for the king to come out and fight, and now he's got to figure something else out and work on the fly. He uses this opportunity to tell everybody that their king has come out to back them up in this fight, and hopefully that will rally the guards and make them fight even harder, knowing that they're being backed up and protected by their king. Melis turns around to do another pass, spots Sunfire, and she's like, "Here we go, attack." So Aegon gets the first shot of fire off, but there's some argument about how dragons are at least somewhat resistant to fire. You can't be able to spit fire and not take a little bit of heat. And Melis is also a war vet. She's a veteran. She's been to war. So with that, she comes up out of nowhere and attacks Sunfire. And you can immediately see the size difference between the two of them when they are up close together. Sunfire is wounded, and while Melis is dealing with Sunfire, Vhagar makes her first appearance out from underneath the canopy. And you can immediately just see the scale, and feel the scale difference between Melis, Sunfire, and Vhagar. Even the animations make you feel like Vhagar feels like she's just too old for this shit. Crispy lets out a sigh of relief because finally it's going according to plan, right? So Vhagar is now making her way over to get in between and stop this fight between the other two dragons. Rhaenys realizes that she is outnumbered. She sees Vhagar and she knows. Aegon too is super excited to see Vhagar and thinks that Aemon's there to save him. Quickly, he realizes that something is amiss, and Vhagar attacks and tries to flame broil Sunfire and Aegon. Obviously not what was planned. Or is this Aemond acting opportunistically? Crispy does see it all. He knows something's up. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this works out in the future. Sunfire and Aegon fall into the forest canopy, and Vhagar continues on. Melis, however, did have the opportunity to break away. Now, in this second, Rhaenys does turn around and see Vhagar circling. So she does a little bit of a huff, and I believe that she was essentially making a getaway and then decided against it. She decides to turn around and attack Vhagar. And here she knows that this is going to be quite a battle, and she actually hooks herself to her saddle. I thought it was an interesting, I like this because it's interesting that, there's going to be a lot of acrobatics in this fight, apparently, in this side of the fight. And so the showrunners did want us to still be able to feel like there's a reason she's able to hang on despite how physical, despite how intense this fight is probably going to get. Aemon sees that Melis and Rhaenyra are coming back for another pass, and so he too turns around. And here is just a shot you can see the massive size difference between these two dragons. They call this war the Dance of Dragons, and it's easy to see why, because it does very much look like they are dancing when they're entwined and twirling and spinning around. breathing fire. It's gory and hideous, but beautiful and graceful all at the same time. This scene, this entire part of the episode, the graphics on it are amazing. You know rationally that dragons are not real, but in your heart, you can feel the pain that they're going through in this fight. Not just these two here with Vhagar and Meleys, but even when Sunfire was being attacked, you actively it's so realistic, you actively recoil every single time you see the dragons fighting. They don't fight so much with fire, they're very much do using their claws to hook and scratch and scrape and gouge, and their teeth to bite and tear. And again, it's horrific and beautiful and heart-wrenching all at the same time, and it leaves an impression on you even if you detach yourself and remind yourself that it's high fantasy, it still does leave a haunting impression on you. So, as the scene goes on, it does not just show the dragons fighting each other, it also shows the repercussions of dragon warfare on the people on the ground. The dragons have to repeatedly land and take off. There are, they are bleeding and the blood is like flying onto the ground and spilling on people. And that in itself is causing damage to the soldiers. Every time they land and have to take off again, they are landing on top of people. The dragons cannot discern against whose side people are on, nor do they care. The dragons themselves don't even care that they are crushing people as they step down or run or land on people. And the act, even without the dragon damage, the actual intentional firing on the infantry, the actual existence, the actual presence of the dragons is causing immense damage on both sides of the battle. Rhaenys and Meleys make it away from Vhagar once again, and this time it's Meleys that turns back and makes contact with Rhaenys, and she's kind of making some sounds, and I think that they are together making the decision to turn around yet again, and they do. They both know that as long as Vhagar's around, that is the biggest threat to the Blacks. If they can take out Vhagar or at least significantly damage her, the Blacks have a much better chance of survival. Now, do I personally think that this was the best decision? I do not. But again, can Vhagar catch up to them? I think Meleys is supposed to be one of the fastest dragons, but maybe Vhagar can still catch up. Maybe she's damaged enough. Maybe I don't know. I'm not there. I don't have any experience in dragon battle, but I wholeheartedly wish that they would have taken Meleys and Rhaenys back to Dragonstone. Hopefully, they would have been able to procure some other dragons to help to back up Meleys, and ideally, they could wait until Daemon is back and Meleys and Caraxes could team up together just like Daemon had wanted on episode 1 to try and at least double team Vhagar, if not grab more dragons and triple or quadruple team, just be able to get more reinforcements. But that's not the decision that was made today. Now, this is the critical error here. They turned around and decided to try and attack before they had a visual on Vhagar, and that ultimately was their undoing. They do a second pass, and Vhagar's not on the ground. She's already taken flight, and they don't know where she went. I think this here is the moment that Rhaenys realizes that they no longer have the advantage and that Vhagar is going to have the jump on them. I think she knows that if she would have been able to catch Vhagar from behind or on the ground or off guard, she would have had a decent chance of at least doing a good amount of damage. But here they've lost the element of surprise. They've lost that first attack buff. And so now their fate's kind of sealed. And Vhagar performs her signature weapon skill and does essentially the exact same move that she did on Jace, and Rhaenys resolves herself to her fate. This might be the most heartbreaking moments I felt since Jaehaerys' death and the circumstances surrounding that was heart-wrenching. Viserys's death, like, I had a real live tear, and I was so upset. I kind of as soon as they said that she was on her way, I kinda knew, and I've been really, really team Rhaenys the last couple of episodes, and I think I realized too late, and I didn't have a chance to harden my heart against this one because this one really hurt. I forgot how much it hurt when they kill off your favorite character. And once again, Aemond is a kinslayer. And we see the outcome of this very first dance of dragons. Kristen awakes to kind of see what's been going on. He sees all of the carnage that they caused. As he wakes up and starts making his way to go find where Aegon has fallen, he sees just the absolute devastation. Gwaine, I believe, is just completely incinerated, so at least he doesn't have to worry about those questions anymore. But yeah, like, there's just the calling the devastation that the dragon caused in just a couple of minutes is calling it catastrophic is an understatement. So Crispy comes across where Aegon landed, and Aemond is already there. He's got his sword unsheathed, so it's unclear as to if he had to fight somebody to get there or if he was planning on just finishing off his brother right then and there. But he eventually sheaths it and just gives Crispy the look of, "How dare you question me and my intentions?" He does find Viserys's dagger and takes it, so this will be interesting going forward. It doesn't look like it's hot here, but we do know that there are inscriptions on it. So it's going to wonder if he does figure out that this has a secret inscription on it. I highly doubt that Aegon has. I don't think Aegon would. Like I just wouldn't put it past him. He's just so self-centered and clueless in general that I don't think he would even look into looking for any kind of secret inscriptions, but it's interesting now it's in Aemon's possession, so let's see how long it stays there and what he does with it. I think he's gonna keep it. I think he's gonna keep it, and I think he's going to hold it as a symbol of him being superior to his brother and how his brother doesn't deserve to hold the crown or the throne. And I think that this dagger is going to continue to play a huge symbolism part in the episodes going forward. I don't think he's giving it back. So we're left with a badly wounded Sunfire, a badly wounded Aegon. We are not meant to know if they are alive or not. I'm pretty sure that they're alive. They wouldn't do us. They're pretty blatant with the offing of characters, and I think definitely if Aegon didn't make it, like immediately, that they would show us, especially since it's probably Aemon that would have caused it. Not saying that Meleese would not have won that battle because she clearly would have. And if Aemond really, really wanted to off his brother, it's almost like you should have just let that happen. You should have just let that play out. But so now the question is, did he intend it or was Vhagar reading his intentions? Like when he said attack, did he mean Meleese? And Vhagar was like, "I know what you really want me to do. I know. You and I, we're here. We are here. We have that psychic connection. So I know that what you really want deep down inside is that throne. And I know that he's the only thing from stopping it. So perhaps that's what it was. I don't know. Perhaps she just didn't like the look of Sunfire's shine. We don't really know because, again, it's not clear. But Kristen Cole saw Aemond attack Sunfire, and it's going to what I'm interested in is how is that gonna play out going forward? At this point, Aemond also just walks away, so it's not even like he helps his brother. He doesn't, like, try and deliver first aid or CPR, any of those things. So, he's definitely not trying to help his brother, despite the fact that, like, he could go in there and try and deliver some kind of medical attention, at least check that he is fully alive. I think that even if he didn't intend it, he clearly took responsibility for what he did to Lucerys. So, clearly, he's probably just going to double down on his own perceived heinousness and just go with the fact that, yeah, I attacked my brother intentionally. I don't think he's gonna make it known. I don't think he's gonna tell anybody, but I think he's gonna play that off in front of Crispy, and they're just going to rationalize it between the 2 of them. That's my prediction, is that he's just gonna let Crispy believe that he would kill his own brother to get the throne, and Crispy can do with that what he will. Crispy's already his own kinda crazy and his own kind of bloodthirsty, so we will see how he responds to that information, and if he tells Alicent, that will be a question. That will be real. So this episode, how did I feel out about it? 10 out of 10, pretty darn close. There's few things that I would change. I feel like the story pacing was great. It wasn't too loaded with action, and it didn't move too fast that I thought the episode felt like it was 5 minutes long. It felt like a good episode. It felt like I got enough storytelling balanced with enough action. Was I shocked and appalled? Yes, definitely. Did I figure out that Meleese and Rhaenys were not gonna make it out of this fight as soon as she volunteered? Yes, but that's already because I have been tortured by the series before. I know. I knew as soon as I had said that she was probably my favorite character right now, I was like, "Oh, no." Like, as soon as those words escaped my mouth, I was like, "Oh god, they're gonna." I didn't know how yet, but I knew that they were gonna do something to her. I knew that she was not long for this world as soon as those words slipped out of my mouth. So, that was upsetting, but again, I saw it coming. Did I still try and cope and believe that maybe with each turnaround, maybe she was gonna make it away? Maybe she was like, maybe it's Aegon they're gonna take out this episode and not Rhaenys. So, yeah, I coped. I coped hard, but amazing TV. Once again, I have no critiques for this episode, except for that they should have Meleese and Rhaenys should have waited for Daemon and Caraxes, and they should have tag teamed or, like, double teamed Vhagar, and now they lost the Blacks have lost one of their most valuable weapons in Rhaenys and Meleese. So now they only really have 2 good-sized fighting dragons, which is Syrax and Caraxes. But again, we can't really put Rhaenyra in danger, so Syrax is kind of on the sidelines. Other than that, Jace and Bela's dragons are so small, and all of the other dragons are not they don't have riders. So, despite the fact that the Blacks have access to more dragons, as long as Vhagar's on the in play, they have a problem because they don't have the numbers to outgun Vhagar anymore, especially with Meleese gone. So, yeah, I think that over the next couple of episodes, that is my prediction is that they're going to try and figure out how to get more dragon riders because right now they don't have an army. Well, they need Daemon to figure out the army situation. They need to figure out the army. They need an army because if it costs them a dragon every single time they have to go and defend a castle, they might as well hit 3 more tiny strongholds because they just don't have the numbers. They need to get an army and get more dragon riders. Unless you are gunning for Aegon, in which case, you just gotta keep Vhagar happy and healthy. Okay, so that's my recap and analysis for this week. I have a couple of theory videos that I have also been ruminating on. I've been thinking about, and I think I might do them, let them fly. I don't know when they will come out. I'll work on it. So if you would like to hear my opinion on the real intention of blood and cheese, possibly, hit subscribe, like this video, and I will see you again next week for sure for episode 5. But until then, I think I will be going and putting some food on top of all of these feelings. That's definitely my plan for the rest of the day. See you soon.